This video is sponsored by Squarespace. You can create your own beautiful websites and online stores with this all-in-one platform. Hi everyone, so in this video I want to talk about some pros and cons of art school. And just a disclaimer, these will differ depending on what school you go to, what country you live in, what program you decide to take, like what you specialize in. Just a bit of background, I'm in Canada and I went to a school for a Bachelor of Illustration degree, which is 4 years, and I'm just going to talk about the pros and cons based off of my experience. I'm not sure if I should start with pros or cons first. Should I start on a positive note or a negative note? I think I'll just start with the pros and then talk about the cons. I think the most that I got out of art school was that it makes you draw things that you normally wouldn't draw, and it pushes you out of your comfort zone. If you're someone who kind of needs like external factors to drive you to do something that you wouldn't normally do, then art school might be for you. I know if I was practicing by myself, I wouldn't draw half the things that we actually drew in art school, because the way it worked for me the first 2 years, it was basically working on your individual skills. So everyone was doing tons of life drawing, observational drawing, and painting classes, and we had to draw still lives and models and paint them and draw them and do all sorts of stuff like that. Those were basically the first 2 years, and that is to help with your skills so that you're able to then complete the later projects in the last few years. So one of the biggest things is that it definitely motivates you and forces you to draw things that you normally wouldn't, and this can be difficult at first, but it really helps your growth as an artist, and it's kind of what you have to do if you want to level up your drawing skills. So that is definitely a big pro. Another one is networking, which basically means you get in contact with a bunch of other artists and you all grow together, and you even get in contact with your professors, and opportunities might come up once you graduate depending on like who you talk to, and you basically just get put in contact with a lot of different artists, and your professors can help you with things. You can ask them questions about the business side of illustration, and being connected to just a network of artists is always a plus of art school. It just depends on how you take advantage of it. I honestly don't really network. I didn't really network that much. I don't really know how to approach it because I already sort of had like an income from my art when I went into art school doing YouTube and all the stuff that I do. I basically just wanted to focus on developing my style and trying to get better at drawing. So that's sort of my experience from it, but if you really push yourself and try to connect with a lot of artists there, I definitely think it's like worthwhile. But I can't really speak too much on it because I am very like introverted, shy. I didn't really make like tons of connections, but it is an opportunity. I just want to take a quick break to thank this video's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform where you can build your own website, your own online presence, a shop, and there's lots of marketing tools and analytics that can help you along the way. I've been in the process of moving my website over to Squarespace, and so far it's been very seamless and all the designs look great. Since we're talking about art school, something that you're working towards is your portfolio. Squarespace has different templates and professional portfolio designs where you can upload your own work and display your illustrations in customizable galleries, and you can even add password protected pages if you need to share private work with clients. Also, you can be sure that the images will always look nice and fit right onto your page because they have automatic image scaling. It's important for your portfolio to look clean and professional, and Squarespace is great for this. You can also connect your social media accounts with buttons and link off to your Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. If you'd like to start building your website, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. When you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/JelArts and you can save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. It really helps me continue to do what I'm doing. And on to the rest of the video. I think another one of the biggest things that I enjoyed about art school was having peers that also draw. Growing up, I didn't really have friends that drew in the way that I did and that sort of like spoke the same language I did about art. But once you get to art school, you're sort of like, oh my gosh, everyone around me knows what I'm talking about and draws just like I do, and I can just like talk to them about my art and about style and about different art supplies. Like, what is this? I've never had friends like this before. That's one of the best things about art school, in my opinion. Making like acquaintances and friends and talking to other people about art. It's just something I've never been able to do before, and it's just like, oh, this is so nice. Like, everyone is supporting each other and motivating each other to draw and getting through assignments, and I think that's one of the best things. Another pro is you get studio space to draw and equipment and materials. Of course, this comes with a price tag, but that's on the cons side. So you get studios to use, you get access to life drawing. There's like extra life at my school where there's like schedules at night where you can go to just continue to practice drawing. You can take advantage of that. There's Cintiqs usually, or some type of tablet. There's like digital studios and then just like regular art studios where you can go to paint. In my school, there's tons of natural light because there's skylights all over the place. And yeah, just like the physical space to draw is definitely a big pro, especially if you don't have a lot of space at home to do things, you can do it at school. Life drawing is another pro because there's nothing like drawing a model from life. You really learn about anatomy, and it's just the best way to observe the human form and to get better at drawing it. And it just gives you very good access to that. And for the first 2 years of my school, we had life drawing every single week. We had a life drawing class, and that really, really helps you become better at drawing people. I don't know if it would be something I would do if it wasn't for art school. I don't know if I would go and sign up for life drawing classes if it wasn't for that. I mean, I did do that before I went to school. I took life drawing classes, but it was at that school. And if I just decided to not go to school at all, I don't know if I would have done in-person life drawing. I probably would have just done it on the computer, which is a different experience. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just definitely not as easy to draw things from a screen than when you have it right in front of you. It is a different experience. Another really good thing about art school is getting group critiques. And this can be a scary idea at first because a bunch of people, like, scrutinizing your art seems scary, but honestly, the only point of it is to improve and for other people to notice things that you don't notice, and it's all in the name of just getting better. So basically what would happen is we would all bring in our projects, whatever it may be, we'd hang them up or we'd take turns and we would explain it, and then we might also explain what we struggled with when making it, what we think went wrong, and then other people will like raise their hand and give you advice and say like, oh, you might want to change this part of it because then I think it would help make this part look better, or the prof might have some ideas for you. And this is one of the most helpful parts of art school because I think it's a really good thing to let other people see your art and give you their thoughts on it, because you become blind to certain things that might be wrong and that you might want to improve on, or some people might have ideas you never would have thought of, and it just really helps you improve. And critiquing other people's art also helps you with your own art, because you get used to looking for things and spotting things that can make things look better. Another pro is you get a degree or whatever it is that you're achieving in the end, which might look better on a resume, but also a lot of artists don't go to art school and they're still successful. So I don't really know how important this is to have a degree, but it definitely doesn't hurt. It's only a good thing, I think, but you definitely don't need one to be successful. Those are all the main pros that I can think of. And now for the cons. The one thing that me and a lot of my friends really did not like was that we had to also take electives that weren't related to art at all. And I understand that it's supposed to add variety to your learning, but I chose to go to an art school and to take illustration for a reason, because I wanted to focus on that. And I don't want to take all these other random classes that don't have anything to do with it, that steal some of your time and make you even more burnt out for your other classes. I just don't really understand why that has to be a requirement. Like, they say it's supposed to like add variety, but why is that mandatory? Why is it not possible to just completely focus on art courses? Like, for example, my first year, we had an English class, which I guess is mandatory in all things, but then we had to pick another elective. And then the next semester, we had to choose 2 electives, 2 classes that weren't related to art. And you're actually not allowed to pick any electives that have to do with art. It has to be different. And I never really understood why this had to be a requirement. If I didn't take those electives, would my learning be worse? I don't think so. I think I would have been able to focus on my art classes even more and not be as stressed and give more effort to the classes that were actually important to me. Another con that can happen is burnout, and I think this happens with any university or college program. You just get so much work piled on you, and there's pressure to get good grades and constant deadlines. And especially with art, you're being forced to use your creativity and your ideas constantly 24/7, and drawing and forcing yourself to draw when you might not feel like it. And I think by the end of every semester, like, everyone gets burnt out. Especially in the beginning when you're not used to it. It's definitely possible to get used to that amount of work. And I would always try to get a good night's sleep. I would try to be in bed like before 2 a.m. at least. Like, sometimes I would have to stay up later, but I never pulled all-nighters. I really forced myself to manage my time and like cut corners when I had to on my electives, and I tried to space things out to make sure I got enough sleep. And I think I also got enough sleep because I didn't have much of like a social life. I just kind of like kept my head down, did my work, and I never had to pull an all-nighter, which is really great. But if you do, I think that just makes the burnout even worse because you have no energy to really do anything. And I saw a lot of people getting burnt out, and I was getting burnt out, and I was getting okay sleep, not enough, definitely not enough, but some other people were surviving on like basically no sleep, and I just don't think that's healthy. And I don't think programs should be designed that way, that everyone ends up burnt out and not getting enough sleep and exhausted. I just feel like there's a bit of a problem with that, and it doesn't have to be that way. Like, I don't think that's healthy in the mindset that the less sleep you get and the harder you work, the better you are, and you should be like more respected. Is like, it's not a very healthy attitude, and I don't think that should be the norm. But unfortunately, it just is, and that's one of the cons. Another thing is it's expensive. It is expensive to go to any school, to go to art school as well. I'm in Canada, and for the 4 years, it was like about 40,000 Canadian, maybe 45, I'm not sure. And if you're an international student, it's like 80,000. So it is expensive. It's definitely possible to learn all these things by yourself without paying this much money. But for me, I needed like a structured environment, and it was just necessary for me to like grow as a person as well and get out in the world and like just do new things. It was a lot of the experience for me, and I think it was a good decision for me, and I was luckily able to pay for my schooling with my YouTube earnings, which is actually like, I feel very, very lucky to have been able to do that. But if you don't have a YouTube channel, or you are unable to work while you're in school, which is definitely possible. I remember on orientation, they told us that you should only be working 20 hours a week to make space for your homework. And then it's like, but how do you pay for school and actually get your assignments done? But yeah, it is expensive. But to me, it was worth it because I just wanted to go to a college and just like meet new people and do more assignments and work on my art. Another con is the projects might not align with what you want to do. And what I mean is what you long-term want to do. I think it's important to explore things that you don't think you would want to do. But once you realize it's not really for you, and if you want to go a certain direction, sometimes you can't really fully go in that direction. Like, we had this one class that was basically all about motion illustration and 3D modeling and all that kind of stuff. And I do really like digital art and digital painting, but I'm not really into the 3D and motion stuff, but a lot of that class had to do with it. So, and I also felt like I didn't learn it properly. I didn't really know what I was doing. I felt like very amateur compared to other people because I was more drawn to doing individual illustrations and I wanted to focus more on that. I do think it was a good experience to still learn those things, and in the future, if I ever want to do more with that, I can. So I don't really know if this is a con, but it's definitely something to consider, that you can't just narrow in on one specific thing that you want to do, because art school is about being exposed to like everything, and then you can decide what you want to do in the end for your thesis project, I guess. But even when you're doing your thesis, you still have those other classes that might not be what you're doing, but you can sort of mold the projects into your own style and way of working to a certain extent. I found that the professors were very willing to like help you achieve what you want to achieve, and if you communicate with them about like what it is you want to do, they will help you find a way to fit that into the project specs. So I don't think that's necessarily a con, but it can feel like a con at first. But I think it is overall a good thing, but sometimes you just get frustrated with certain classes where you're like, oh, this is just really not what I want to be doing with my art. Like, I just know that this is not how I'm going to be working. Like, we had this one collage project, we had a diorama project, and I was just like, I know I'm never going to do this stuff on my own time, and I just didn't really enjoy it too much. Also, a con is your experience is very dependent on who you are with, what your professors are like, what teaching style, and what school you're going to, and if it's all online or not. Because of the current situation of the world, a lot of art school is online, and I really don't think art school is worth it if it's completely online and you're paying the same price that the people who had it in person are paying. I don't think it's worth it because you don't get the physical spaces to draw and all the tools at your disposal. So it's very dependent on like who is there, the people that are there, the specific school. There's no like one experience that you can say that art school will be. It just really depends on a lot of factors, and that means it can be difficult to make a decision on whether you want to go or not, or which school you want to go to. So deciding to go can be difficult because you never really know what your personal experience will be. Also, art school, this isn't really a pro or a con, but it's more of like advice. You kind of get what you put into it. If you do the minimal amount of work and you don't really sketch on your own time and you don't really like put a lot of work into it, you're not going to get a lot out of it. The more work you put into it, the more you get out of it. So it also is dependent on your own like motivation, I guess. And I personally do well in classroom settings because I have a fear of failure, so that drives me to try to do the best work I can so that I succeed. And I don't know if that's like a toxic thing or not, but it really does help my motivation, and it helps me like actually complete tasks when there's like consequences and deadlines. So that's why school worked for me as well. Another thing that might be a con is depending on your school, the courses are pre-selected for you. So you don't really get to choose which ones you want to take. It's a pre-made schedule most of the time. And electives you get to choose, and in the later years, there were some classes that you got to choose between, like you had to select either narrative or digital or something like that. So as you go on, it does become a little bit more customized, but in the beginning, you don't get to choose what classes you take. It's all made for you, except for your electives, like the ones that don't relate to anything, like psychology or philosophy, science, like stuff like that. This is also dependent on the school. I don't know how it is with other schools. Also, art school is less teaching. It's not really about teaching you how to draw specific things. It's more about making you draw a lot and giving you tips on how to do it better and teaching you how to think rather than teaching you how to draw. So no one is going to, I mean, it does happen sometimes, but they don't really say, okay, today we're going to learn how to draw hands. This is how you draw a hand. It's not like that. It's more like, we're going to do some life drawing today, and I'm going to be walking around and like seeing how you're doing and give you like tips on the way. And if everyone is struggling with one specific thing, I'll show you How I approach it, and I mean that's the professor talking, it's more about doing it until you get good at it, because that really is the best way to improve. You can't really learn how to draw something well just by an explanation, although explanations do help and they do happen sometimes, but it's more about you drawing something over and over and getting used to it and getting better at observing things. But they do teach you how to think and how to come up with ideas, because illustration is a lot of like concepts, because it's supposed to convey something. That's kind of what an illustration is. It's like something that illustrates something else. So usually it'll have a concept, or it's for a narrative, or it's like a comic, and it has to communicate, and you do get taught how to think and how to communicate through your work, which is a pro, I think. But the con is that you don't get specific lessons about specific technical skills of how to make things look good and how to technically draw things. You don't really get that type of lesson. It's more about practicing and experiencing it and then getting critiqued on it and trying to improve next time. I hope that makes sense. If I think of more pros and cons, I'll make another video, but these are the ones that stand out to me the most. Art school, whether or not you want to go to art school, I think it really depends on which school you go to, what program you're taking. I took illustration, and also if you're capable of teaching yourself, or if you need a learning environment to make progress. I personally feel like I needed that learning environment to push myself, and my experience was overall pretty good. I know a lot of people don't have a good art school experience, and that just depends on where you go. So just make sure you do a lot of research about it, and just know that if it doesn't work out, you don't have to continue doing school, and it's not a failure. A lot of artists are successful without going to art school. You just have to have that self-drive to improve your skills and to learn things. I hope this video was a little bit helpful, and if you have questions, I'll try to answer them in the comments. A lot of people ask me questions about art school and if I would recommend it, and I can't say for sure yes or no, because it really is a personal decision, but I hope this kind of gives you a better idea of what it's like, or what it can be like if you went to the same sort of school that I went to. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check out the Squarespace link if you would like to build your own website, and I will see you in my next video.